Couple of updates on the project CTV. That is the carbon capture project, also out in Penwell. They have received their letter of completion from the controller's office on their 313, so that's ready to go. Odessa College and Ector County have also agreed to the terms for their tax abatement. They're just working on the right now the county's just going to do a memorandum of understanding on that until they can get all the other paperwork done. And they're talking to actually the hospital district right now on a conference call for what they're going to offer them. We're still number 2 on their group of 4 states that they're looking at, as far as we're like $56 million above the first state on the cost and everything on their project. But we did come in way under on the electrical charge for the project, so that's gonna like bump us up pretty good on that. So that'll look better for us. Should close the gap a little bit more. The compliance committee recently met when they had 2 projects that they were looking at. Well, they were just kind of reviewing the housing deal on that one, and but the other project that they looked at, they did send it back to the business and ask for some additional information on their financials, and so we'll look at that again soon. We also are working with 4 different companies right now, trying to get all their paperwork together to submit an application for some possible incentives. So hopefully we'll be having those on with the compliance committee soon. We're starting to get to attend conferences and trade shows. Wes has been to a couple of Sykes Electric Guild in Florida a couple of weeks ago, and then he went to IMC spring meeting in Fort Worth week before last. And then we have a couple of trade shows coming up. We're going to the Plastic West in Anaheim in August and FabTech in Chicago in September. And that's pretty much what we're doing. So if you have any questions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is the CBA Advertising and Marketing, and Craig Van Amberg is out, and I believe everyone got the copy of the report. I've glanced through it, and I can't understand half of it because I'm too old for this technology. I don't know how to read that Twitter. Twitter. So, but does anyone have any questions on the board? If you read through this, if you have any, he will be at the next meeting, but it's similar to the, when he's here to explain it, I understand it a lot better. I'll just put it that way.
I don't have any questions.
Everything okay? Next on the agenda will be the Black Chamber of Commerce. Chris?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members. We're going to give you our report, and we're going to make it short and sweet. Our list was a little thinner than it was the previous month. We're going to hit the high points. We turn the report in so it's there. So we just wanted to highlight that our social media network, for the 3rd month in a row, we've seen an increase in activity. Along with partnering with the SBDC, the Odessa Chamber, and the Hispanic Chamber, our viewership has increased. The previous month 15%, this month we were up 7%. So we're seeing a lot more activity. As a matter of fact, on the way here today to the meeting, I had a young lady with her company called about information, and I told her that it would be a great idea to get in touch with Tyler. So I didn't tell him. I'll let him know after the meeting that he will be receiving a call from them. We had 2 small home-based companies visit with us about possibly expanding their businesses to storefronts. One is a t-shirt company, the other does soaps, and they do cleaning body products. We're in the process of doing our fourth installment of our workshops with the SBDC. This will be July 15th. We're putting the finishing touches on our golf tournament, 12th annual Robert E. Williams Senior Golf Tournament. This will be the 14th. This will be at sunset. This will be on the 17th. This is next Saturday. So we are also taking part in with the City of Odessa Code Enforcement. We're going to help them promote and be involved in their back to school backpack program. We're in the planning stages with the Hispanic Chamber. We're going to, between our tournament and their tournament, we're going to have a membership drive that we're going to join together and put on an event, hopefully downtown, to kind of promote both of our chambers. We're hosting our second of the year. We usually try to do three. It's our networking members breakfast. This is just an opportunity for some of our members to meet our board. Anybody that has joined the previous months, this gives them an opportunity to come in and pretty much meet and see what type of activities the Black Chamber has going. And then finally, we're in the planning stages of our Ebony Bar Award and our banquet. This is going to be November 13th, and we meet today, and we'll have everything finalized by the end of the day. And then next meeting, we will give you the information on who will be our speaker and location and everything of that nature. Any questions?
Questions from the chamber?
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, Hispanic Chamber. We got someone from the Hispanic Chamber? Yes.
Good afternoon. Apologize for not having reports for you guys. We're having problems with our printers at home. So we're biggest ongoing projects we have right now is this new crane hoisting company. They're in the process right now of going through funding opportunities. I know they're speaking to several banks about small business loans, and I actually emailed Wesley a couple days ago about getting him in connection with ODC and seeing if those funding opportunities are available for them and what that would entail. So we're going to kind of hand him off over to Wesley and his team moving forward on that. We are also still working with the long haul trucking company, NBX, just kind of getting them a little more organized. It's a one-man operation right now, so we're trying to get him to get the infrastructure of the business out, financial projections, understanding how to put budgets together and everything. That seems very promising. He had a very successful year even through the pandemic. So we're excited about seeing where that goes. On top of that, we're also helping 3 separate businesses navigate through their EIDL applications. A lot of them are a little concerned because the SBA has kind of slowed down that process for a lot of them. So we're kind of helping them understand what's being asked of them. A lot of them are Spanish speaking, so they're not even quite sure what their emails they're receiving even say. So we're kind of helping them translate that and understand the next steps moving forward. On top of that, just from general chamber, management, we're getting very, very close to finally cracking the 100 member mark for the Hispanic Chamber, and just continuing to do our own, diversifying our own revenue streams through several of the fundraisers we have in the coming months. So that's my report. If you have any questions.
No question on that. Can you get a copy of the report when the printer gets?
I'll email it out to everybody. Yes.
To Norma?
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll have it for future reference.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. UTPB, Tyler.
Good afternoon. You should have the report in front of you. We turned it in a little bit late, so I wanted to make sure everybody got a copy. Okay, good. So for the month of June, we had 443 counseling sessions. That's up by about 53.4% from June 2020. So we're continuing to see an increase in the number of clients and the number of sessions with the clients. I think this is the third out of the last 4 months that we've had an increase of 50% or more. So I'm liking that trend substantially. We had 4 seminars presented, 59 attendees. We had a little over 1.2 million in capitalization for the entire area. We didn't have any new businesses this month, and we didn't have any, as a result, didn't have any new employees for this month. But we've already got some in for the month of July. So for July workshops, we've got coming up, actually, I believe it's today, is how to write a business plan narrative. That's co-hosted or co-sponsored by the Odessa Hispanic Chamber. We've got one next week called Taking the E-Commerce Plunge. That's going to be sponsored by the Permian Basin Black Chamber. And then we've also got How to Start Your Own Business later in the month. And at the end of the month, we have Introduction to Government Contracting. I believe that came up in last month's meeting. So I tried to get the new director there is named Rich Lyles. He's the director for PTAC. He's based out of Abilene because of Dice Air Force Base. But anyway, he will be leading it. But that will be one that we're promoting in the Permian Basin. And we've done it usually a couple times a year. Last time we had pretty good attendance. I'm expecting even better this time. So it'll be good. The Small Biz Accelerator Program, we're down to our last 3 sessions with the businesses. So number 7 is actually next Tuesday, and then obviously 8 and 9, actually I guess that's 4, 8, 9, and 10 will be the following weeks. Number 10 is actually a presentation by them, which they will be presenting to the mentors, potentially to some lenders, things like that. So it'll be kind of a abbreviated version of Shark Tank kind of deal. So there's still about 16, 17 businesses that are very active. The others kind of are in and out, a little bit spotty with their homework sometimes, but that's understandable. Everybody's busy right now. So that's a big part of it. Any questions?
Do you have the date of that 10th meeting when they're going to do that presentation, when and where that'll be yet?
I believe it is at the engineering building. That's subject to change because they haven't set the final place yet. I'll have to double check the date, but I can email you and send it to you, or send it to everybody for that matter.
Send it to Norma and let her distribute it.
Okay.
So that
It's on a Tuesday. I know that because it messes up my Taco Tuesday, and it's during lunch. So that caught my eye. But as far as the actual date, I'll have to double check. Okay. Any questions?
Any other questions?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Motran. Is someone here from Motran? I don't see James or. I didn't get a call from James saying he wasn't going to be here. Does anyone have any questions or just hold them for the next, if we do, to the next time since there's no one?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think the only thing that I would like to know, there's a listing in here of our, it's in our, what is it, what's the document called where our plan, basically, our general development plan? There's a listing in there of those projects, and I guess what I would like to make sure, because we talked about accelerating one of those projects, and I want to make sure that that list is updated to match what we are planning, you know, what's on the drawing board for us now, because there's one project I know we were talking about, instead of doing a traffic signal, we were talking about doing an overpass, trying to do an overpass. So if we could make sure that listing in that general development plan, ask the folks at Motran, James, to make sure that's up to date. That's the only question I had on that.
Yeah, make a note of that. We'll get with him to get back to us and verify that we've got everything updated. So, okay, now it's the city administration's Mr. Fry.
Good afternoon. afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. You should have had the report left at your seat this afternoon. We apologize for not having them to you a little bit sooner, but that information should be there. I'd like to take a moment and highlight some of the contents of that report. For the month of May, total assets increased $920,764 to a total of $58,953,696 at the end of May. The total revenues year to date is for the 9 months is $6,767,659. The total expenditures are $1,740,737. Also, on the page that lists out the reserves, I think it may be the third page in your packet, you'll notice that Rack Industries' long-term commitment has been removed in the amount of $2,757,294, while $700,000 of UTPB's third project training facility commitment has been moved from long-term to short-term on that page, just so you can see those changes reflected on there. Regarding sales tax revenue, we just received the information for the month of July. The amount received for ODC was $838,869, which represents about a $21,000 increase when compared to the same month last year. The year-to-date revenue, which is 10 months now since this is July, is $8,360,542. The total amount budgeted for the year was $9.5 million, so we're well on the way toward that. Regarding the investment information, no new securities were purchased during May, but we did report last month that we did purchase $620,000 of Dallas School GO bonds with a yield of 15 basis points and a term to maturity of 14 months closed on June 14th. So we will be adding those for the June report that will come to you next month. We're continuing to look for additional investments that will help to increase the yield on our portfolio while still maintaining the safety that's so paramount to how we do these things. With that, I would be happy to entertain any questions or provide any further information you might need.
I think last month you had indicated that you were working with a local bank with regard to a CD. Did you get that concluded?
It has not been concluded. We have had further discussions with them. It's really been my fault. I was out last week and we just have not finalized that. It is still on track for $2 million at 50 basis points.
Okay, and is that, I guess I'm looking at the AIM Bank, which looks like matured on June 30th. Is it taking those funds?
It is not taking those funds. It would be adding funds that are currently in the investment pools.
Okay, okay.
Those funds would likely be renewed at that point.
Okay, yeah, because there's a nice interest rate on that, but I'm sure that's
It's not nice
probably
anymore.
gonna be a lot lower.
You are absolutely correct.
Yeah, okay, okay. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I need to entertain a motion to accept the financials as presented.
So moved.
Motion is, need a second? Second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Finance report. Thanks, Larry.
Thank you very much.
Okay, review, next item number 4, review and discuss proposed 21-22 general development plan formally for approval at the August 21st meeting. That's for us. I went through and I didn't see anything that caught my eye that needs to be corrected or anything. David, did you see something, or Larry, or have you had a chance to go through that?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm on the right. Okay. Yeah, on the, I think I'm in the right place. It's page 13 of 27 in our packet. Under economic development, it's talking about the Chamber's Economic Development and the Compliance Committee. Am I in the right document?
13 to 27.
Okay. Yeah, there's about midway under the goals in relation to the Compliance Committee. This is a minor thing, but I want to make sure that we're pursuing this correctly. It says, make appropriate referrals of applications for new and existing businesses based on the jobs creation matrix or the investment benefit matrix, and it really probably ought to say and/or, because there are times when we would have grant requests for both from a company. That was really the only thing I had on that.
Do you have a hard copy of that? I can't get it to scroll.
You can use mine, sir.
Oh,
Well, and David, I think that your point about making sure that the list of text dot,
yeah.
I think that
Froze up.
applies here too.
Froze up.
Yeah. Just slow.
Yeah, so if we just make sure, yeah, absolutely, that the text dot list is, projects is up to date.
Give Larry a chance to find what he's looking for right quick.
Okay.
On the goals for the Odessa Black Chamber of Commerce, on the second bullet point, it says, act as a conduit for the ODC by bringing in an untapped source of businesses, et cetera, that has not been trained or informed on how to pursue finances. Do we need financing there? Pursue financing? Or do we?
What page are you on?
I'm on 16 of 27 in the general development plan.
Okay.
The second bullet point under goals.
Actually, kind of receive.
Yeah, it would read better that way, I think. I think that's a good recommendation.
Yeah, I don't have any problem
It
with
just
that.
depends on what we mean there. I think we mean financing.
I think you do too.
And I don't know how, that we mean how to pursue a business. I think we mean how to build a business or develop a business in that same bullet point.
Mhm.
Or say how to pursue a business opportunity. I mean, you could say it that way
Sure.
too, something.
Yeah. Did you find what you were looking for? You have anything there?
Yeah.
16 of 27 on the Black Chamber, we're making just some,
Clean up.
cleanup items like,
Semantics.
yeah, semantics, I guess.
I hate it when people say that. Words are important. It's not semantics.
Second bullet
I
point,
think that's only 'cause you sell words for a living.
they're saying pursue business opportunities.
Yeah, but I'm not wrong.
It's better understanding what, because here it says,
And we won't approve it till next month's meeting, right?
Yeah, this is the first, overlooking this the form now. In fact, I don't even think does this require action to, no, because we're just going over the form.
We're just
So if
discussing.
you have any more changes, we'll vote on it next meeting.
Okay.
This is more to
Good.
kind of get us started on going over it, see what it is. If that makes sense.
I think that it would bear also inclusion in both the Hispanic Chamber section and in the Odessa Black Chamber, section, the ongoing partnership that they're building with the SBDC that has been so fruitful. I think that we want to mention that that's a goal that we have for both of those organizations.
Yes, and we are thoroughly pleased with how that's working now, all three of those organizations. That's good.
One other, I guess one last thing, do we wanna add some language in there? Because I don't think I really saw it in there regarding the Permian Fuels America initiative, because that really is gonna be an ongoing, long-term, strategy. So maybe we could figure out,
How to include that.
yeah, maybe even take the mission statement. I think that committee developed a mission statement, and maybe take the mission statement and put it in there some way, include it in there some way.
Does that need to be its own
I think-
section?
Well,
Or does it need to go in the CBA section?
I don't think it's just a marketing
That's-
issue.
Yeah, because what we've used so far was all marketing because of the way the commercials and all that, CBA, but it's our intent to start reaching out to the political people in Washington DC and Austin. So I think.
And we'll be, and we'll,
First Jan, I think we probably need to have a heading, just like we do the Black Chamber and everything else. Not that we're doing anything right now, but for future use. And then we need to clarify and have some bullet points of what we intend to do with that.
and,
Get with Kirk and
yeah, and maybe phrase it some way when you do the mission, and accomplish it through marketing and messaging, something like that to state and federal government agencies or agents, or maybe that'd be the way to do that.
who do we need to send these changes? To
Christina,
Christina?
do you wanna send us a Word version so that we can mark up for you, or how do you prefer to get those changes?
I can send a Word version if that's preferable to you. Yeah, absolutely, whatever works for
Well, I
you.
know that works for me, but these guys who are.
Hey.
Who don't know that clear. May
When she tells me the Word version, I understand it completely. No, if you would send that, so they can make the change. I've made notes here, but I think it would help them to address and get the changes so we can get those made. And then possibly, get it to Norman to get to the rest of us so we can, because we've got three missing that we need to get them up to speed and not there. So when we get back next meeting, they're not looking at this and we're looking at something else. That's, if we can accomplish that. Is that fair to everybody?
Mhm.
Okay. Any other discussions on that?
Can I ask a question too?
Yes.
Typically, the information comes in from the different contractors, and that's due July 27th, so
Right.
that we have a budget for y'all at the next meeting. So are you wanting to allocate any funds to this new, what you wanna add in as far as Permian Fuels America? Or just leave that within the advertising budget for right now, or?
I would say leave it in that budget right now because that's what we've used, but
Well, and it has to come out of promotional dollars, right?
I think so. But I don't think we're ready yet to put a dollar amount on what we might want to spend getting the word out to the legislators. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we need to have an Tools America Task Force. And we're trying to put that together, but it's kind of like this meeting today. In July, you can't get anybody to, everybody's going every different direction. So we were hoping to have something reported today, we couldn't, so. But yes,
Yeah, only the really diligent people show up is what.
that's true. Okay, and I'm fully aware, since you were so kind to help us move that budget deal, that we got that, we're getting ready for that. And so all the contractors that are here today, you know that the budgets are due. You've got those timeframes. If you have any questions, let us know, but, and we're looking forward to getting that taken care of as well. Any other questions before we move on? Review and discuss contract form only, so we don't, for annual contractors for the approval of the August 12th, 21 meeting.
I have some questions on that one.
Okay.
I find it up at the top a little bit cryptic. It's got the wrong century, and then I'm not sure on the second line it goes in there, and then it gets down to owner, and it says owner, but I think that probably should be grantee, applicant, lessee, because contractor is probably not contracting with the owner, property owner, and you may be creating a contract with the owner, between the contractor and the owner, by having them in here.
Okay.
Because in our grants, the grants are directed towards assignees, lessees, and it doesn't mention those in there.
Is this the form contract with our
Am I on
contractors that do our economic development work?
Am I on the right one? No. I'm sorry.
Let's see.
I misunderstood.
Okay, this is review, discuss the form for annual contractors for approval.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on the wrong one. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I didn't have that copy either, so
Okay.
I apologize.
That's okay.
I didn't have any issues with any of that, any of that.
Okay, that's gonna be approved at the next meeting as well. We'll get a copy and you can go over that.
Okay.
Remove from the table and consider the revisions of the ODC bylaws. And I think, Melanie, I thank you and Jeff for getting together and going through all that.
We did,
Excuse me, may I have a motion to remove,
oh,
please?
I move to remove
Oh,
this from the table.
Second.
I got a motion and a second, thanks to Norma. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Okay, on this, I think, and Melanie, I'm gonna punt over to you. Y'all went through, and I've gone through, and I don't have any issues with the changes. But do you have any comments you wanna make, or, and unfortunately Jeff's not here, but,
I don't think I got it.
It was emailed by Norma on Tuesday, in her email where she asked us to confirm that we would be coming to the meeting.
Okay, I remember that. I guess I just missed it. But let me see if I can
Would
find it.
y'all like me to talk through the red line changes?
Mhm.
Just for everybody's benefit? I would like to say, and I'm sorry that Mr. Russell's not here today, but I enjoyed working with him on this project because like me, he believes that words are important. And
What did you say?
what'd you just say?
like me, he thinks words are important and not
Okay.
just semantics.
Oh, okay.
I think the word semantic is very important. Okay.
I believe really that the first change that you'll see, and this was redlined against what had been previously approved by ODC, but not yet by council. We did a little work, making uniform some of the capitalization of defined terms. only ex officio members, non-voting ex officio members now are up to 3 ODC board members, plus a member each from the Odessa Black Chamber, the Greater Odessa Chamber, and the Odessa Hispanic Chamber. And this gets into the Downtown Odessa Inc. Review Board. In reviewing the bylaws, we noted that our bylaws require that any committee of ODC have 2 ODC board members sitting on that committee. So we made a revision to the Design Review Board consistent with that requirement, that it's now made up of 1 Downtown Odessa Inc. board member and 2 ODC board members, as selected by our board. Again, that's because of the requirement of our bylaws.
Okay, so it should, but there's a couple of typos. Because it changed to 1, then it should say Downtown Inc. board member, and then 2 ODC board members.
Yeah, we'll need to fix that.
Yep,
Thank you, David.
Okay. Okay,
Okay, we added in what we had spoken to previously. No, it's okay.
I was just asking him if he had a copy. He's got the,
Does he have the
not the red line.
I have the final draft, the clean it.
The clean,
Yeah.
we're looking at section 4.3, now C.
4.31.
C.
C, 4.3C.
Downtown grants.
Yes. Okay, this is where we've added in the requirement for 2 bids to justify, applications for facade grants. We also, and this was one of Mr. Russell's suggestions, and I think it was astute. We already require receipts showing that they've paid their contractors. But he had suggested for our protection and for the protection of the businesses that we require the release of any potential claims at the affidavit. I included that in the email where I sent the documents over, and I believe Norma kept it attached. It's a basic form affidavit that they would just get their contractors to sign when they're paid.
Okay, yeah.
That's what I was questioning earlier.
Yeah.
That's,
And I need Michael, if you would come up, he wanted to make a couple of comments about
Okay.
that, of how difficult, I'm gonna let him speak.
Good afternoon, members of the corporation. Thank you for your time this afternoon. I did get an opportunity to look at those revisions, and I think you guys did exactly what the council had requested, and that is to reconsider those and modify those. I did note, and you didn't, I don't believe you commented on Melanie, but that removal of the mayor, I think that was important for them because they wanted to leave the work with the corporation and Downtown Odessa and then ultimately make that final decision. So I know they'll appreciate that. The revisions as they relate to what I would typically call a release of lien on that, I will tell you that it's fairly difficult now, and Alexa can certainly substantiate this, to get the information from the contractors as it is today. I certainly agree with the premise of getting that release of lien, but I would simply say that if this is the way that the board and the council wish to move forward, we would like to report periodically if we have any difficulties in getting that information. That way you can perhaps reconsider that. But I will say, as it is today, it's fairly difficult to get the information out of those folks as it is.
Well,
So.
If I'm one of the businesses that has this project,
Sure.
my answer to that is, contractor, I have your final payment.
Yes, ma'am.
Come sign this affidavit in exchange for your final payment. Does that not make that any easier?
Well, certainly, they now have that leverage, right? But I will tell you that a lot of our property owners struggle to get information from their contractors. And again, oftentimes what we notice is they're not necessarily dealing with contractors who may be very good at what they do, but perhaps don't necessarily have the systems in place to provide those sort of invoices. Again, not arguing against the recommendation, simply, but rather I would say that give us an opportunity. If we're having any issues, we'd like to come back to you and report how that's going for us.
Well, maybe if we get this affidavit, we don't need the invoices and receipts.
Okay?
My opinion would be if we have something from the contractor that signs off that they've been fully paid
Do we
and
want
they
receipts
release
and
any
invoices?
claims.
Yeah, I'm looking at Cindy and our staff, and
Does that
typically.
make things easier?
Well, I don't know if it makes it easier, Ms. Holman. I think for our purposes, we'd like to see the receipts. We'd like to see those invoices because that serves as our substantiation for the expense.
Substantiation for the expense.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I hate that we're missing two board members and especially Mr. Russell because this was something he felt strongly we ought to include.
Yeah, but I think Michael's saying include it. Let's go forward with it. I mean, or excuse me, if we agree that let's go forward with it, but if it turns out to be not doable for some reason, then they come back to us.
Come back and we
Yeah, I
have
think that there's no problem
Yeah.
with that.
I would say that would also hold true for that educational requirement. If we're seeing people coming in but don't want to do that, we'd certainly like the opportunity to report back to the board and the council and say, hey, that may perhaps we may want to reconsider that.
Now Larry has a question on the form that was in there.
That was just an example.
Okay.
Just an
Okay.
example
All
of
right.
the type of thing we're looking for.
Okay.
It's not one that, yeah.
It's not
He said this-
necessarily the
yeah.
final no, it
Yes,
was just
okay.
an example that Jeff and I found when we were looking. Okay. We then included that for we already had the requirement for facade grants for the two bids. Moving down to B, we've got the requirements for applications for the infrastructure grants. And this is where we also require the two bids, but we requested that applicants with less than 3 years business management or ownership experience complete 3 seminars as recommended by the SBDC. They don't have to do that before they apply. They just have to do that over the period of the grant term. So it shouldn't slow down their ability to get approved for the grant. It's just something we want them to do during the grant term. If they've got more than 3 years of business management or ownership experience evidenced by a resume, we're not asking for any kind of heavy requirement there, just something that they self-report on their business experience that excludes them from having that education requirement. We felt like that is a easy way for experienced business owners to show that they don't need to complete that requirement, and we don't believe that that's burdensome on an applicant to supply that. But of course, if it appears that it is burdensome, the 3 seminars, we can reevaluate at that time. Jeff and I talked, and kind of our sentiment on that was the 3 basic seminars to be picked out by the SBDC Center will improve the viability of the business long term. But if nothing else, then these businesses learn that there's a resource that they can turn to when there's something like the EIDL grants or other things that come up that they would like to take advantage of. And then this language in here about the recommendation from the compliance committee, it was already there, we just sort of reorganized the way that it is in here. We had made sure it applied to both the facade and the infrastructure grants. The next change is in section 5.4B, and this is just to semantics. public funds of the city of Odessa, consistent with their investment policy.
Okay.
And then those are all the substantive changes on the bylaws.
And the signature of the treasurer, yeah. Just a capitalization there. Yep. Looks good.
Okay. Oh. Do we wanna discuss any of those further, or is there anything else?
I didn't see anything, I
That
think.
y'all
the
thought was
revised-
missing, or?
No, I thought it was fine that, and I'm gonna refer to Jan. Jeff was, with these changes we made, Jeff was involved in it and everything. I feel comfortable with Jeff. Would it be wise to table that vote? I don't think any of us have any problems, but we're missing two others. And
I can tell you that Jeff and I made these changes together, and when I put the documents together to be emailed, I sent them to Jeff before they went out.
Yeah.
For one more, you know, I mean, he's,
so I feel comfortable with him.
far be it from me to speak on his behalf.
But I would also say, I think all of us were very comfortable with
Right.
them resolving that was really those were really the remaining issues.
Kind of at our request, if the two.
I don't
Well,
know.
and they're the changes that were discussed, and there was some board consensus. I wish Chris was here because he had concerns about the education requirement, and that he didn't want the requirements placed on those infrastructure grantees to be so heavy that it has a chilling effect. And maybe Alexis wants to talk a little bit about that, but we try to make it clear that experienced business owners would have a very easy way to show that they are exempt from that,
And I feel,
education.
I'm real comfortable with those requirements of that, because if they don't have the experience, they need to have the opportunity to get that.
Well, you know, the other thing that I would say is, let's agree that we need to be nimble enough. It's no different than the issue that Michael raised. If we agree to do something and it turns out that there's a flaw in it, then we ought to be able to revisit it very quickly and adjust. So,
Jan?
That's a very good point. By changing the bylaws, this is an ordinance, it's not easy to adjust. The best way to make nimble adjustments would be with your contract. You can change that very easily from person to person. If you leave your ordinance as it is, or very broad and generic, and change your contract as you need to, you can be very nimble. I would
Apply to the
suggest,
guidelines, cause
I would suggest not getting quite so picky with your ordinance.
so the guidelines that are the separate document fall under the ordinance as well?
They fall under the ordinance, but you're making your ordinance so picky that if you want to vary from it, you would have to go back through council 2 times to get it changed.
Well,
If-
most of what, we didn't really add a lot to what was in the guidelines, all of that was already there. We may have moved some of it around,
But
most of it was already there.
by being so picky about you must go to 2 classes, you must, what else did you
The
change?
affidavit
You must have
and
an
the
affidavit.
education piece.
If you leave that off and put that on your contract, on your guidelines for your contract, you'd be fine. Then you could take it off. But if you
And
put it in
adjust
the ordinance,
In the bylaws.
itself,
and the-
in the bylaws, in the ordinance itself, then if you took it off, you would have to go back and change your ordinance again.
Well, before we make a decision to change the way that's addressed,
okay.
we may want to.
So maybe we suggest, maybe we do end up tabling it, but let's, I would suggest then, let's put some language in there that says there will be educational requirements for first-time business owners or something like that.
And leave it vague?
A general something like that.
That we reserve the right to.
That are further described in policy, if you will, or procedures or something like that.
Perfect.
And then do the same thing with regard to the bid requirements.
The bid requirements and
That
the
it's all,
evidence that contractors have been paid, we can broaden that language.
but then it demonstrates the intent of what we're trying to do in a general way, and then we can
Fine.
further define it in some kind of a procedural document.
That's wonderful. And then
Okay.
you can tinker with it in your other documents.
Okay.
I think that's wonderful.
So,
I'll email Jeff
Okay.
and see if he wants to go through the exercise of revisiting those.
and let's table it now.
Mhm.
Let's do,
I think so.
okay, can I give a motion to
I'll
table
make
it?
a motion to
We'll take it on the table, get a second. Any, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. With that understanding, we're gonna pass those bylaws next meeting, come hell or high water. Just saying.
Once we get the semantics right, we'll
But
get ready to.
I think what Jan said, let's make it very broad in the bylaws and then fine tune it in the contracts. Is
Mhm.
that, and
Yes.
you'll help us with that?
Yes.
So, hell or high water, we'll get it done? Okay. All right, the next, is remove from the table and consider the revisions to guidelines governing the downtown infrastructure and facade grants. Here again, it's Jeff and Alexa. Alexa, are you willing to, are you here to?
Mr. Chair, may I have a motion to remove?
I need a motion to remove it, since I put the other one back on.
So moved.
Motion to remove, made by David, second by Larry. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you, Norma. Alexis.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I'm sorry I wasn't actually involved in the conversation that Melanie and Jeff had. Otherwise, I probably could have saved us some time. But our recommendation from the Downtown Odessa Board is quite similar to what you guys were just discussing. These guidelines are not only found in your bylaws, they're in our bylaws. So even if you approve them, then they go to change them in ours, and we don't approve them, they don't even go to council. So I think that it would be great for us to work in harmony to make sure that both entities will, be able to come up with some guidelines that we would all approve, and, we're not going in this circle of talking about bylaws 5 meetings in a row. So I think that it would be really great if we could have a seat at the table and really discuss these, overlapping guidelines to make sure that it's cohesive and in the best interest of both organizations. That being said, the guidance that we received was exactly what Jan was saying, was that, this is something that would be better addressed in the application and in the contracts that people sign, instead of doing it inside the bylaws and the guidelines. Keep those general, and then we can kind of have it so the review committee could be the gateway to make any changes to the application, to the contracts, that kind of thing. That way ODC representatives do have a say in those changes, Downtown Odessa representatives have a say in those changes, and we kind of have some oversight that way.
Okay. Since we've tabled that, we can table this one as well.
Well, I'd like to bring up a couple of
Okay.
things on this. Generally, the only substantive changes to the guidelines was the addition of the 2 bids and the addition of the education piece and the affidavit that we talked about. Everything else, and I realize this document looks heavily redlined, that was because of organizational changes, where in the discussion of the facade grants, you had certain things laid out, but then in the infrastructure grants, you didn't, where you have eligible and ineligible activities and things. But then there's guidelines under both that may include a statement that something is eligible or ineligible. So a lot of the work that was done was just trying to get these guidelines organized in a way that is consistent for both programs. I think that those changes are worth making so that the document is laid out consistently. But some of these picky things that, business-specific equipment does not qualify for the infrastructure grants. That was already in there. It was already in there that certain fire suppression,
Systems.
systems are automatically qualified. The only substantive changes were regarding the education piece and, the substantive changes that we discussed in the bylaws. So, some
So
of
you-
the changes made to this document, I think, are important to keep including the removal of the mayor and those kinds of things that we've heard they wanted.
So you're comfortable with voting?
Well, I would say let's table it to address just those substantive pieces.
Okay.
If y'all are comfortable with the reorganization part, then I think that we can agree to accept that. But we can table on the substantive changes for 2 or more bids, even though it already required that they receive bids. We can table on the grounds of broadening those particular items.
My personal feeling, and I need David and Lay's, if we're gonna change that to, according to be more specific in one area and broader in the other, I'd like to make sure both of them are cohesive too. Okay, so tabling both and coming back with both of them in the same deal, to me would be the easiest, and then we have everything like we want it. I agree with everything you're saying, we do need the 2 bids and all that stuff, that's gonna be in there, but I'd like to have it where it coincides with what our bylaws say, if that's okay.
But since this results in an ordinance, right? These guidelines result in an ordinance, right?
Now, these are both the downtown things, right?
Right.
Well, it says
Downtown grants,
City of
yes.
Odessa Code of Ordinances, Article 11-4, Downtown Infrastructure and Facade Grants, okay. So, can we, I guess, the reorganization of it, I don't know that anybody has any issues with that.
Yeah.
Can we approach this the same way with a general sentiment that says, we're gonna require some education for a first-time business owner? We're gonna require, there's going to be some requirements with regard to bids associated with the work that's actually done. And then those end up in a procedural document and/or a contract. Can we agree to do it, to reformulate those that way, table it and go on? But I think if we can get the reorganization part, I don't think anybody has any problem with that.
Okay.
Do we want to keep the very specific requirements that were already in? That were not addressed or changed regarding business-specific equipment or any of those things that were already in the document? Do we want to keep those, or do we want?
That would prompt another question for me is, are those specific requirements, are they a result of the 4A regulation?
It's my understanding they're a result of the guidance of this board, that we didn't want to pay for kitchen vent-a-hoods.
You agree with that?
That is correct. It's actually pretty recent. In 2019, that was adopted. It used to be that we would pay for those kind of things, and some former recipients did receive grant funds for vent-a-hoods and things like that. And then it was added in that really our intent is to get these buildings up to general code, not a industry-specific code.
Okay.
So, I mean, in some cases, we've been very comfortable making specific requirements in here.
Yeah, here's where I see maybe the difference. Is there a likelihood that strategy would ever change? I don't think so.
No.
But is there a likelihood that instead of requiring 3 seminars, we require 4? Yes, there is. I think that's probably the difference.
Okay.
Okay. So I
Well,
need a
then,
motion.
I think that what I'm gonna take from this, when I talk to Jeff about it, is the substantive requirements that we added, we want to broaden the language about
Right.
those. We're fine with reorganization, and we're also leaving in any other specific requirements that were already in and already adopted.
Right.
Okay.
And
And
then
the-
we'll get more specific in the,
In
with
the
the contractor's
contract.
contract.
Or in our general development
Yeah.
plan, or,
And that there was a consensus of those here that we like the, whatever the specifics are with regard to education and
Right.
whatnot. We like that.
and so we'll need to make sure those are adopted in our contracts.
Right.
Okay.
So I need a motion to table.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Okay, that gets us down to the reports. Partnership has not met. Tax incentives, Melanie, y'all haven't met either, have you?
No, sir.
Advertising, we have not met. We're getting with Craig in the next month, though. And downtown grants design, Jeff is not here, so I don't see any reports to be given on that. So we go to citizen comments on non-agenda items. Is there anyone in the audience that has anything to say? And with that, I entertain the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Larry's ready to go. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. Tyler? The Shark Tank man did, I can't think of his name off the top of my head. He did call me and I've just been swamped. I'll get back to him. Yeah. Tell him that, bear with me, we'll get back to him.
I guess it was just tired, it kept going slower and slower and then expired.
That's what I was
You know, I went to print, and computer I set out, I didn't out ink or roll ink, I changed one, I didn't have the other. Because it's red line and blue line, and I just printed a clear draft copy, because the final copy.
And I agree with you, that was set as an example, that's not what, it looks